Um, okay, where do we start? There's been several defining points in my life which have sort of nudged me in the direction that I eventually ended up going down. I was 11 years old. I was on my way to school, and I remember just getting hit in the back of the head and sort of falling forward, and then just being set upon by a couple of skinheads who basically gave me a good beating, left me on the side of the road. Basically, they knocked me out. I was unconscious. And at that time, that was a subconscious awakening that I had in my mind that, it was, obviously there was a lot of taunting going on at that time as well. You packy, go home, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And all the other sort of racial stuff that was going on. The 70s were very, very, the anti, Asian, anti-Pakistani, or, these racist elements, they were very strong. They had, they had the National Front, they had the skinheads. They were very strong. I mean, they were very open. You'd see them walking up and down the streets in Asian areas, very intimidating. So at that time, I think what happened was I realized that I had to make a decision. I was either going to be a punchbag for these guys. I could either just become one of those kind of people, become a coward, be afraid of my own shadow, or I could, stand up and do something about it. Alhamdulillah, I chose, the latter. I started to learn self-defense martial arts because that was the only sort of way that I could learn some sort of way of fighting. I did it for about 6 months. Then my father took me out. The reason he took me out was because within those 6 months, I probably had about 7 or 8 fights at school, where I'd, hit somebody or broken their nose or whatever. And my dad said, look, you're getting to becoming too violent. You don't go to school to fight. You go to school to learn. Obviously, my father didn't realize what was going on in school. There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of external factors because a lot of the National Front and skinheads used to come to our school. We had a lot of people who lived in the local area who used to set upon us. They set their dogs onto us. They would come out and they would taunt us. So obviously, because I knew a couple of things, I used to fight back. And as a consequence of that, I was actually kicked out of school. So my sort of education went down the drain after that. I was already involved in street gangs at the time. In Birmingham, there's quite a well-known gang called the Links. People of my age will probably know who they are. And it was predominantly set up to fight the skinheads. It wasn't like a turf war or criminality. It was purely set up to defend our streets, to defend our mothers and our children who were being spat on, who were being attacked, and so on. It was just purely for that reason that we set up. And, we used to take it onto their territory. Rather than wait for them to come to us, we'd go to them. We'd go to their areas where they were, their bases were. And, so we had all these confrontations. The typical thing happened, other gangs started forming, and then people started fighting over turf, and people started fighting, this is so-and-so gang, and this is so-and-so gang, and they were all started fighting each other. But alhamdulillah, I'm glad that that's one thing about me. I never got involved in that. I was always like, I used to call myself the United Nations. I never used to get into that. I'd always be the peacemaker. I would try to mediate between the two groups. And I got to know everybody like that. And I said, why are we fighting each other for? This is not what we're about. And then people got into criminality, they got into drugs, into hard drugs, Class A drugs, and it just became ridiculous. So obviously I eventually pulled out of that. I think the second defining point in my life was the whole Rushdie Affair. I was quite upset about it, I mean, I didn't really know much about Islam, but I knew enough that this guy's insulted my prophet. He's insulted the mother of the believers, and he's insulting our religion. And even though I wasn't practicing, but that was enough for me to hate him for doing that. There was a big demonstration going to happen in London against this book, and our local masjid organised some coaches for people who wanted to go. So I jumped on the coach. We went to Westminster, and there was like a big sort of demonstration. From a demonstration, it went to a sit-in, and when it became a sit-in, then the police wanted to move us on. So everybody said, well, we'll sit down, and we'll refuse to be moved. So I sat down as well, and like a passive kind of resistance. when the police started coming, they started roughing us up and pushing us and kicking us. So I sort of stood up, and a couple of other guys stood up, and we started sort of pushing them back, and they started pushing us, and then everybody stood up, and then it sort of became a bit of a scuffle, and then all the riot police came, and it became a standoff on the bridge, on the Westminster Bridge. So they literally, what they did was they came in, they sort of smashed their way in, they grabbed me, and they sort of pulled me out, and that was my first experience of being physically manhandled by the police. There was about 20 of them, and they grabbed me, they started giving me a couple of digs and punches, they picked me up, threw me in the back of the wagon. And then they started joking to each other, this bloody part-time Muslim. He was referring to me, because this bloody part-time Muslim. Yeah. We'll soon sort him out when we put a bacon sandwich down his throat. Now when he said that to me, I thought, you're calling me a part-time Muslim? Even though I probably, in the classical way, I probably wasn't even a Muslim because I wasn't even praying, and I thought, you're calling me a part-time Muslim? I ain't a part-time Muslim. But it was the first time somebody had said that to me, and that was like a bit of a jolt. That, yeah, well, why am I a part-time Muslim? Which made me sort of think that, what am I not doing? That he thought I was a part-time Muslim. And then I sort of, then that got me angry, and I sort of resisted. And he tried to bend my arm, and I said, you're not bending my arm. You're not putting the handcuffs on. I go, you and your dad can't put your handcuffs on me. And then they came down, they gave me a couple of digs, and then, they threw me into the cell. I remember that's the first time I actually, started shouting Allahu Akbar in the cell. And I told everybody to start shouting Allahu Akbar. And then the people in the next cell started shouting Allahu Akbar as well. And then the police come in, they go, shut your mouth, keep the noise down, blah, blah, blah. And then we started shouting more Allahu Akbar. We thought, this is pissing them off. So I think that was probably what made me sort of politically aware. Why is the establishment, why is it people attacking Islam? Why are we being attacked, our religion as Muslims? And it was sort of late 80s, early 90s, probably 89, 90, when I started to think more about Islam. I started to learn more. I started to, study. We never had internet in those days, so I went and bought a lot of books. It was like I was a thirsty person, and I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking to quench my thirst, because I was just fascinated. The more I read, the more I became fascinated. I read all the hadith and the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran with the translation, and I was like, wow. All these years I've been missing all this stuff, and, I've been living like an idiot, I've been living like a fool, ignorant of Allah's mercies and His beauties and His bounties and all these things. I felt empowered, having that knowledge of Islam inside my heart. I felt empowered. And obviously being the way that I was, I wasn't, I've never been a shrinking violet. I sort of got involved in, giving dawah, and, I used to be, then we got a couple of guys, and we used to go into town. And, we did have a speaker's corner. I think it was in 91 that I came out of the Birmingham Central Masjid, and there was a guy standing outside. He had a big brown box full of video cassettes. So I took one off him, and, it was in a case, and I looked at it. I thought, okay, let's take it home. It was called Massacres in Bosnia and Croatia. The video was very explicit. I mean, it actually showed, dead women with their stomachs cut open, pregnant women with their stomachs cut open, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was shocking. And I remember asking him, and I watched it, and I was really upset. I actually cried when I was watching it. I thought, who's Bosnia? I've never even heard of Bosnia. Where's Bosnia? What's all this about? And then I sort of, asked around and this and that, and I got a bit more information. I started finding out there's actually Muslims have been there for centuries, and obviously they were repressed by Tito regime and communism and blah, 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 and the whole sort of background, and I got the information. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, a friend of mine told me that there was a convoy leaving for Bosnia to go and pick up refugees from the camps and bring them back to England. So literally within a couple of weeks, I was sitting on this convoy, and we were heading off to Bosnia. I mean, there were thousands of people, women, children, coming from the background that I came from. You might see it on TV, but when you actually see physically, when you smell the stench, of vomit, and you hear the screams and the cries and the children who are hungry, it is quite overwhelming. And, I was quite sort of, I was emotionally very sort of, upset when I saw all of this. I started handing out food packs, we're doing like passing the food packs out, and, I'm giving them out to everybody. And that's when something just clicked inside my heart and inside my head. And I thought to myself, well, I haven't got any money to give you. I haven't got any food to give you, but there is one thing I can do. I can fight. I can defend you. And that's when I made up my mind to stay and to basically to defend these people. Obviously, the guy I came with, Assad, I got to know him over the last couple of days, a lovely guy. And I told him what I was going to do. And he said, are you bonkers? He goes, well, are you mad? Well, he goes, this is not Spark Hill. You're not in Birmingham now. You're not in Bosnia. Yeah, because this is a bloody war zone. You don't know anybody. You don't know the language. Have you ever held a gun? I said, no. He goes, so how are you going to fight? I said, I don't know. I'll just get a baseball bat or something and smash him over the head. He sat in the car. He's still saying to me, Shahid, you're mad. What are you doing? He was driving. He still put his head out at the back of the window. Come on, like this. And I goes, no, I'm not coming. So anyway, I sat down. I had my bag over my shoulder, sat on the footsteps of the masjid. Sun's rising. And I'm watching him drive away. And I can see his lights fading in the distance. And I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, man, he's actually gone, this is for real. And it also all dawned on me that, okay, you think you're a hero now, don't you? Now what are you going to do? So I'm thinking, oh my God, okay, so what shall I do? So I'm thinking, right, okay, now I need to link up with some people. Yeah, I need to find somebody. I need to find some soldiers. I need to find some mujahideen. And I'm just sitting there on the masjid footsteps, and this a 4x4, and the car pulled up right in front of me, and it stopped and put the window down, and some guy started speaking in Arabic to me. He said, "Assalamu alaikum." I said, "Wa alaikum salam." He started, obviously he was asking me, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking for the mujahideen. He goes, oh, you look for the mujahideen? He goes, come on, jump in, I can take you. I said, nice one. I just wanted to get in the car because I like the car as well. So I threw my bag in the back, I jumped in the car, and that was when he took me, and then he introduced me to the group that was there. Of the brothers, and then that whole sort of episode sort of started from there, and then I did some fun stuff and bits and pieces and whatever, and then it's just sort of like went on from there. I stayed for a bit, and then I came back, and then I went back again, and I used to so I used to combine it. I'd collect loads of aid and stuff, and then I started driving over there, and then I got a couple of friends involved. I sort of get a van and fill it up with food and medicines and stuff that they needed over there. And then we used to drive convoys over. And I did that for about, from I think up until about 95, coming, going, staying there, doing little bits and pieces. It seems that the narrative regarding compassion has been as if it's only for the Western, non-Muslim, white, whatever you want to call it, that only they can be compassionate, only they can be Mother Teresa's, only they can be Florence Nightingales, and all of us darkies, us brown skins, Muslims or whatever, that we're just, mad, crazy, warmongering, head chopping, blah, 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 whatever. And I think that what they need to understand is that how much more compassion can somebody show that they're willing to risk their life, to go into a war zone and to fight for people who they don't even know. They don't know the area, they don't know the language, they don't get paid. They have to pay out their own pocket. And majority of the time, they end up being killed. So, in your eyes, that's not compassion. They went there because a man called Bashar al-Assad, a genocidal madman, Hitler of our time, is annihilating and destroying a whole population of people because they're Sunnis. Him and his genocidal army are killing brutally. I don't need to go into details. You already know what's going on with the barrel bombs and the sniping and the chemical attacks and whatever. So where is everybody? Where is the West? Where's all these Muslim armies? Where's all these Western armies? Where is everybody? Nobody. So who went to the aid of the Syrians? The Muslims, the Ummah, because we feel their pain. So they went. Now, if that's not compassion, then what is compassion? And just because they've gone there to fight, does that take away their sincerity? It doesn't. If somebody wants to go into humanitarian work, alhamdulillah, mashallah, very good, carry on. Somebody wants to go there and fight, let him fight. Because he's doing it out of compassion, out of feeling that, look, this is the best that I can do in this situation. You're all going mad. and talking about this perceived threat to Britain, about these guys coming over, being war hardened, having seen this and being radicalized. Well, to give you a case and example, I went over in the 90s. I'm that person that you're talking about. Did I come back here and blow anything up? Did I come back here and do anything illegal? No, I'm still here. I haven't done anything illegal. The authorities have been following me around. They saw me, they watch me. Everything I say in the open. So this narrative that you're pushing, that these guys are going to come over here, you've already got people in this country who fought in Afghanistan, who fought in Bosnia, who fought in Palestine, who fought in wars in Chechnya. They're living in London, when you used to call it London-stan. They never done anything. Who were the people that actually did these attacks like 7/7 and all that? They were what you call clean skins. These were people who were born and bred in this country, young guys who were radicalized by the internet, by YouTube, by the mainstream media, seeing the atrocities and the murder and the killing of Muslims, going on the internet, seeing all this sort of stuff. They were radicalized by that, by the media and by the internet, and then they went and did what they did. They didn't go and fight anywhere. They weren't trained in whatever. So this thing that you keep pushing, that these guys are going to come back and they're going to do that. No, they're not. I'm not saying that, every single one of them is not going to do that, because I can't control people. You can't control people. People are going to do whatever they do. If it was up to me and I could talk to them, I would say to them, look, this is not the way. Yeah, don't do that. You're over there, do what you got to do. But when you come back here, you can't be doing these sort of things, because this is a different field. This is a different arena. There's a different fight here. Here is a war of words. It's a war of minds. It's a war of attrition between us and them. It's a war of us getting our voice heard by us speaking out and telling the world what's actually going on. So, but if you start doing these sort of things, they're gonna use that to sort of to cut the freedom of speech, to cut our tongues, to constrain us and to stop us from speaking. And that's exactly what's happened. The way people used to speak in the 90s is not the way the people speak now. In fact, nobody speaks about it. The stuff that I'm saying to you now, you will never hear this on the mainstream media. Nobody will talk about this the way I'm talking about it. People are going to say, this guy, he's mad. He wants to go to prison. Because the stuff that I'm saying is very emotive. It's dangerous, as far as they're concerned. Why? Because obviously they're going to see me as someone who's glorifying jihad and the mujahideen and making it into a glorious cause. And they don't want that. They want people to say, oh no, there's no jihad in Chechnya, there's no jihad in Afghanistan, there's no jihad in Syria, this is not the way, look after your mom and dad, do this. And they bring out all these, so-called scholars who start towing the party line and telling the youth, oh, no, you shouldn't be fighting, you shouldn't be doing this. What I'm saying is that you can't control everybody. Whoever's going to go is going to go. But what I'm saying to you, so-called scholars who do toe this particular party line, fear Allah and speak the truth. Don't try to change the religion of Allah. Don't try to hide the verses of the Quran that talk about jihad. Don't try to diminish the honor and the dignity and the rank of the mujahideen, because you're too cowardly to commit it to do it yourself. So don't demean it. Yeah, what you should say is that it's a lofty goal, and they are lofty people, but we don't have the capability of achieving that because we're weak. So rather than putting them down, put yourself down. That they are on a different level to us. We're on the bottom level, they're on the higher level, and we strive to get to that level one day. You see, and I've said this many times, that if you're when they talk about deradicalization and about the youth and all that, and all these programs they keep coming out with, and they keep failing because you've got people who don't know anything about what they're talking about. They've got no background, they've got no history, they haven't got a CV like mine. They can't talk about the things that I can talk about. When I talk to young people, when they start giving me the big one, or they start looking me in the eye and what you're talking about, bro, this, that, and the other. And then when they find out who I am, they put their head down because they go, Giza, this is the real McCoy. He's a proper one. We just play on the PS3. He's been there and done it. So my effect is different. And then when I'm telling them, moderation, calm down. Stop jumping up and down like a chimpanzee. Yeah, you need to relax. Relax yourself and learn about your religion. Yeah, learn about there's different ways to fight. There's different ways to get your point across. Yeah, you have to look at your circumstances and your situation, and your actions have ramifications. And if you in Islam, we have the lesser of two evils. If you see that what your actions are going to do are going to have more negative effect on the Muslim community, don't do it. When you do something like this, what happens? Muslim women get their hijabs ripped off. Muslims are getting beaten up. Muslims are getting killed. We're being oppressed. The new laws and this and that and curtailing freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So your one little act, you might have done whatever you did, but look at the ramifications of what you did. So wouldn't it be better not to do that? Because the effects of what you did were greater than the benefit that you got from that. But you see, because there's nobody to really make them understand this message. Because when you got these people coming on and start, degrading and criticizing, they go, oh, you're just a sellout. That's what, forget him, don't listen to him. You're going to call me a sellout. What have you done? Where have you been? What's your background? So, you're hot here. I've got the t-shirt. I've been there and done it. So don't talk to me about being a sellout. Don't hijack my religion. And this brings me on to the point about ISIS. There's a lot that I can say, but really I'm very, very upset with what's going on with them, because I feel that they have hijacked this noble cause. And it's very, very confusing especially for the younger generation, especially for the practicing Muslims. It's our ambition. It's part of our deen. We want an Islamic state. We want to be ruled by Amir al-Mu'mineen. We want Sharia to prevail. We want everyone to live in peace and in equal way. What the non-Muslims need to understand: if you live in a country where Sharia is implemented, you are safe. You can practice your religion. Nobody's going to persecute you. Nobody's going to harm you. No one's going to kidnap you. No one's going to take you for ransom. It won't be allowed. The Muslim army will protect you. When you live in a Muslim state, and if you don't believe me, read the history of the real Khalifas, of the real time when we've had Islamic State. We have a history of living in peace with Jews and Christians. It's all there. It's all documented, not only by Muslims but by non-Muslims. When people, when I see what's going on with, they take these prisoners and how they're treating them, this is totally un-Islamic. When you're fighting in a battlefield, they're in front of you and you're fighting. That's a different story. Then it's kill or be killed. Yeah, you know what I mean? Let's not mince words. He's coming for you, you're going for them. You know what I mean? You do what you have to do. You gotta shoot him, you gotta chop him, you gotta take his head off, do what you gotta do. You're in a battlefield. You're fighting. But once you've subdued your enemy, he's now at your mercy. He's got no weapon. His head is down. His hands are bound. That's when the true character of a mujahid comes out, because that's when you show compassion. So a mujahid is ferocious on the battlefield, but then he's also compassionate. And then you leave them. He's not a threat to you now. He's not a danger to you. He's bound. You now torturing that person, killing that person, slaughtering him. What kind of an image are you giving about Islam? Forcibly making people convert to Islam. What image are you giving? La ikra fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. So why are you forcing people to be? So what I'm saying is, but because they have this, they've got this very, very powerful brand and headline, Islamic State. Every Muslim wants an Islamic state. Real Muslim wants an Islamic state. This title of Khalifa, every Muslim dreams of the day when we have a Muslim Khalifa. And because they have now hijacked these two names, it's become very confusing for a lot of people who don't know the background of who these people are. But I do believe that, you have the top tier who are the hardened, hardcore, psychopaths who are doing what they're doing. But as you go down the line, I do believe that there are genuine people working in these organizations who genuinely believe that they're doing some good for their country and for their way of life and their culture. And I think those people are probably the people that we probably have more chance of trying to make understand that, look, we understand what what you're going through. You feel that your culture is being attacked. You feel your country is being attacked. Your values are being attacked. But actually, that's not the case. And I think they're going to be more rational, and they'll be more willing to listen to us and sit down and say, look, Britain has a history of dissidency and defiance. You people should know about this. Would you allow another country to come and occupy you? You wouldn't. I'm sure you would never allow it. So why would you expect that other people would allow it as well? You call yourself a democracy and a freedom of expression and freedom of speech and all these sort of things. We're not your enemies. There is no clash of civilizations between Islam and between Muslims and non-Muslims. This is a fallacy, because we have a history to prove that Islam has lived in harmony for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years with all the other minority religions. So we have a history of that. So you can't say to me that, we can't live. Yes, you can. I'm not going to force my beliefs on you. You don't force your beliefs on me. We can still sit down. We can have a cup of tea. We can have a chit chat. We can agree to disagree. Also, I think the young generation, they do need to be very, very careful. Don't believe the hype. Don't fall into this trap of these glossy pictures, glossy videos, keywords, headlines, all this sort of stuff. Don't fall for that. Yeah, because I know for a fact a lot of Muslims who have gone from Britain to Syria have been press ganged, coerced with glossy words into this particular group, ISIS. And I can tell you for a fact, they want to get out, because that's not what they signed up for. Which sincere Muslim is signing up to do brutality like that? So young people, I think you need to keep this in mind. Yeah, you need to understand the situation. Don't just go in blindly. Think about it, understand what's going on, and maybe there's something more effective that you can do in this country by being a bit more sort of vocal and getting involved in other grassroots organizations. And maybe that might be a better thing for you to do, because the situation over there is quite complicated. Yeah, and as a young man, you're not going to understand it.